On today's episode of Andy and Ari on 3, we talk about the Arkansas job, which is now open. How good is it? Who might want it? Who might the Razorbacks go after? And can interim coach Bobby Petrino have a shot? Also, Memphis coach Ryan Silverfield joins us to talk about how tough it is to win in the American right now. And hey, your name's showing up on all of these hot boards because his name is showing up on pretty much all of them. Also, Notre Dame plays Boise State in another chance for the Fighting Irish to keep winning. How much do they need to win by? Do they have to win with style points now? Because their 10-2 might not look like everybody else's 10-2. We'll talk about Notre Dame as well on Andy and Ari on 3, presented by BetMGM. We've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We will be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. When you join BetMGM, you'll get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB, as in college football, CFB, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code CFB. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code CFB when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers are not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. Call 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa or 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3, presented by BetMGM. Going to be a fun show for you today. We've got Memphis head coach Ryan Silverfield. The Tigers looking like one of the main contenders in the American, which there's quite a few of those. And I think, Ari, it's fairly safe to say the team that wins the American probably going to be the Group of 5 team that winds up in the playoff.
That's a lock, right? Like, that's not even, like, I don't even know who else would be in the mix there. Who am I forgetting?
We're going to talk about Boise State later, which has a loss to American team USF. Boise State's going to play Notre Dame this week. I think it's probably a bigger deal for Notre Dame than it is for Boise State. But we'll talk about that. It does seem like between Memphis, Tulane, Navy, and USF, am I missing someone there? North Texas?
You're forgetting North Texas. It's those four.
Yeah. So that is a pretty tough league at this point. So we'll talk to Ryan Silverfield about that. We'll also talk to him about showing up on various job hot boards because he's in demand. He's been winning there for a while. He's the one who replaced Mike Norvell at Memphis. So we'll have Ryan Silverfield later in the show. Right now, let's talk about one of the jobs that I think you probably heard Ryan Silverfield's name thrown around for, and that's the Arkansas job. That opened up on Sunday. We talked about it a little on Sunday, but I've been thinking about it a lot, Ari, and what this job is and who can win there. And there was a commenter in the chat when we were still doing the live show who got me during the summer, because we were talking about Sam Pittman being on the hot seat. We're talking about, how hard it is to win in Arkansas, how it felt like he was perpetually on the hot seat. And basically you win 9 games and then they get excited and then they say, okay, now when are you going to win 10? And then they start kind of counting down the clock on you. And I was making out like, okay, that's probably as good as it gets. You're not going to compete for national titles because look at what you have ahead of you in the SEC. You have to deal with Texas and Texas A&M and LSU and Alabama and Tennessee and all of these other schools. But you know what, Ari? The person in the chat said, did you say this about the Ole Miss job when it opened last, when Matt Luke got fired? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I did. And guess what? Ole Miss might be the best team in the SEC because they hired Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I mean, when the sport started changing, 2 or 3 years ago, we had some pretty in-depth conversations about conference affiliation. And I remember when I think me and you were even at the Athletic when we were talking about this. Like we used the Purdue job as do you remember this conversation where it's like, is Purdue a better job than Florida State? And remember, people went crazy. And like, it's not Purdue, but like Indiana?
Right. That's where I was going with it. Is Indiana a better job?
Same state. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, Andy, is because, I still think that there's a clear, tiering system or tier group for most jobs in America. And I think we're going to find that when Florida opens at the end of the year, if it opens, but if and when, that they will still attract a certain number of candidates because it's Florida and it's a high-end SEC job and people would walk to do that, right?
Auburn maybe too, depending on how things go the rest of the way. We're not sure yet.
I would have ranked 5 years ago. I don't know. I would have ranked Florida as a tier higher than Auburn, just because of the state that it's in and the location of talent. That would be less important now than it was 5 years ago, but still. But then it got us talking about the Curt Cignetti scenario. And it's like, if Curt Cignetti has another year like they did last year, and it looks like Indiana is well on their way, being 5-0 and already thumping Illinois, would that be a slam dunk? No doubt about it. Cannot not take that job scenario. And 5 years ago, I think it is a no-brainer. I think part of the reason why it was so hard to build a program with longevity is because anytime a smaller, quote-unquote, lower-tier school got the right person got early results and then bolted before they were able to see it through long-term. And now, if your team is in the Big Ten, if your team is in the SEC, and you are given the resources financially to hire an elite level staff, you have an NIL nest egg big enough to get players and compete in that space, and you're in one of those two premier conferences as we look down the barrel of every single type of, philosophical super team scenario, like, why would you leave? And I wonder, in turn, if Arkansas becomes a better job than we would have given it credit for just because of its existence in one of the two premier conferences in college football, and also with the countless instances of other coaches going to non-traditional winners and making them winners. Like, it's a completely different conversation than it was 5 years ago to me.
It definitely is. And I was thinking about it wrong. So I don't remember who it was in the chat, and I apologize for not shouting you out and giving you full credit. But you were right, because the way you have to think about this is if the school is willing to pull in the right direction, where everybody pulls in the same direction. And basically, the simplest way to put it is if the school is willing to care about winning at football, which I think Arkansas has proven over the years that it is definitely willing to financially care about winning at football. I mean, like they hired Brett Bielema away from Wisconsin when Wisconsin was winning the Big Ten title. Like, so that they've done this in the past. You just have to hire the right person. You have to decide this is the person, and you have to guess right, because I say guess because there is some luck involved. When Lane Kiffin was hired at Ole Miss to succeed Matt Luke, it wasn't a slam dunk. Lane Kiffin has failed as a head coach before. He'd been good at Florida Atlantic, but there was no guarantee that when he went up a level, he'd be good, because when he'd been at the highest level at USC, he'd not been able to get it done. So you didn't know if he was going to be the guy. When Missouri hired Eli Drinkwitz to succeed Barry Odom, you didn't know. But look at what he's done. So there is luck to it. There is skill to it in hiring the right person. But you have to decide, hey, we're gonna support this with all we can. And I think Missouri's been very aligned. Financially, Ole Miss has been very, very aligned. Arkansas has to be aligned. which brings us to Hunter Yurachek talking after the firing of Sam Pittman when he was explaining what was going on. So this video is from Courtney Mims, the sports director at Fox 16 in Northwest Arkansas. This is Hunter Yurachek talking about funding the program, the football program at Arkansas.
You were at the board meeting, and I gave you some statistics where our head coach compensation, our assistant coach salary pool, our support staff salary pool, and our overall operating budget ranked towards the bottom of the Southeastern Conference. I think with that information, Coach Pittman did not have the resources he needed to appropriately compete in this conference right now.
Okay, so we've heard versions of this multiple times. And so he's referring to a board meeting a few weeks ago. And by the way, I said Courtney Mims, the sports director at Fox 16 in Northwest Arkansas in Little Rock. Very, very different parts of the state. So, but the funding part of it, funding the football program. And so to go back to what Hunter Yurachek actually said at the board meeting, he said, we, as in the University of Arkansas Athletic Department, are currently funding men's basketball in a way that allows to John Calipari to try to win a national title, which is why they got John Calipari in the first place. So they've committed the resources where they believe they're funding it in a way that John Calipari has what he needs to compete against UConn, to compete against Kentucky, to compete against North Carolina, to compete against Duke. The question is, can Arkansas fund football in a way that allows them to compete against LSU and Alabama and Georgia? Because Ole Miss decided they were going to do that. And I think if we looked at these things over the last, the previous 15 years or so, there were periods where we just said Arkansas is a better job than Ole Miss.
Andy, you're one of those weirdos that likes the Fast and the Furious movies, right?
Not really. I mean, the one where the submarine, the nuclear submarine chases them across the sheet of ice in the Arctic while they're driving cars. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing.
That sounds great. Hey, let me ask you. If I gave you a 2007 Honda Accord, and I'm talking about one of these Honda Accords that has 160,000 miles on it, but will run to 500,000.
I had an 01 Honda Accord that is exactly what you're describing.
All right. I'm going to give you your 01 Honda Accord back.
Yeah.
Okay. You could drive that thing through a minefield and it would still work.
I could have driven, a million miles. I could have driven it.
And then I put you at a starting point next to some of those crazy cars in Fast and the Furious. And I said, Andy, I want you to race these people. And then you finished last. And then I fired you from your job after, is that what you heard? Is that what you just heard?
So, yes, Vin Diesel, Ludacris, and The Rock just dusted Sam Pittman.
What do you?
Yeah.
So and I thought about writing about this. I don't know if I should, but
I'm going to write about it, Ari. I'll take that burden off your shoulders.
You're better at this than me at certain things. I'll trust you to do it because I fly off the handle with this sort of thing. It drives me absolutely batshit crazy that you hold somebody accountable for not winning in an unwinnable situation. If that's the case, if Arkansas did have less money on the table, if they had less NIL funds, if they had less resources than the teams that they're competing against, why would you expect them to have different results? And then ultimately are now paying a buyout, which is more wasted money that you could have allocated to actually giving him the resources that he needs. And it's I have never really interacted with Sam Pittman. I know that you have more than me.
He's awesome.
I've heard that
one of the best dudes you'll ever meet.
Coolest dude you'll ever meet. And I actually regret that I never had an interaction with him that allowed me to find that out for myself. But I've talked to a lot of people who have had those interactions with him, and it's universally, this guy is amazing. I would play for this dude. Anybody who lets him, coach their offensive line is going to have a much better offensive line after he instructs them than they did before. And it's okay, well, he's the scapegoat for Arkansas right now. Arkansas seems hopeless because of him. And it's this whole notion that he did something wrong blows my mind. He was driving the 01 Accord, and Notre Dame has one of the souped up cars.
Yes. Yes. Notre Dame's a great example of what you're trying to compete against.
So why? And it's and even I wrote this. It's it's inexcusable to put a defense out onto the field that looks like it doesn't know how to play. And that's probably true. I think it's possible to make the case that Arkansas was still worse off than it would have been even with the resources that it had, right? Under other leadership. And you fire that person if you don't think they're getting the most out of it.
Right. And part of it is we've seen this in multiple places where I think Brian Harsin fell victim to this at Auburn, where they basically starved him out. They weren't going to give him the resources he needed to succeed because they didn't like him. And
which I think is a secondary conversation about how to poison a program. But like that's you know what I think is interesting, and I'm going to do. You guys thought this show was going to be dry today. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Politics.
Okay.
Donald Trump is our president.
Mm-hmm.
Half the country loves Donald Trump, and half the country hates him.
Right.
No matter what side you're on.
Right.
But when you are voting for your president, and there are two candidates who are competing for your vote, I feel like that is the time where you should hate and root against the other candidate. But once the person is in the position, shouldn't everybody be rooting for Trump right now? Because
we're all Americans.
You
want the country to succeed. I get you. That's not how it works, but I get you.
It's not how it works. But in theory, if you love America, you would want the person who's leading the place that you love to succeed. And I think that there are certain segments of people out there that want him to fail so they can say, I told you so.
Well, and this is where I go to Ole Miss.
Do you see where I'm going with that, though?
Yeah. Because at Ole Miss, I don't know how everybody felt about Lane Kiffin when Lane Kiffin got hired at Ole Miss. But no matter how anybody felt, and this is on the, this is a credit to the leadership at Ole Miss, from Keith Carter, the athletic director, to the president. Like, they decided that they were all going to pull in the same direction. They decided, we are going to give this person everything they need.
Right.
And if they're good, they'll be successful. And I think that's what Arkansas has to decide.
Everybody should do it with all their coaches. You give the person who's in charge everything they need, because even if you don't like them, they might prove you wrong.
Or sometimes they will prove you wrong. That I think Florida's a good example of that. Florida gave Billy Napier everything he needed, and it didn't work.
And when that happens, Andy, at least you're making a more informed decision in paying a buyout. Like, either way, that's the way it should be done. So, like, this idea of starving out your coach, all you're doing is hurting the thing that you're supposed to love. In politics, it's America. In college football, it's the team. And listen, the people don't give the president the resources, so it's not the perfect analogy. But the point is that if he is wearing your team's polo on the sideline, you should give them all the resources that they need, because ultimately you care more about the success of the logo than you do of the person. And I think there have been coaches who have been fired in the past because of circumstances like that. And I'm not even saying Brian Harsin. Like, I think Brian Harsin did a lot of things wrong. So
I'm not saying that Brian Harsin was perfect by any stretch,
but yeah,
right. The people who didn't support Brian Harsin at Auburn were probably right. He was probably a bad fit for that job, but that doesn't excuse doing it that way.
And if you do it that way, is it possible that Auburn would be 2 games better this year because they're not starting from so far in a hole when the new person takes over? Like, I think also part of the giving the coaches the resources that they need when they get there is to allow them to exhaust those resources so that the hole for the next person isn't quite as deep. I don't know if you buy into that or not, or if every year it resets, but like the way Auburn's, I do think in recruiting, like Auburn wasn't even in recruiting battles with top tier players at the end of the Harsin era. I don't know if that was by choice or by necessity or by circumstance.
I think it was a little bit of everything.
But so maybe if they were in some of those battles, it wouldn't have been such a big hole for Hugh Freeze to try to dig out of. And he might not be able to do that now as a result of it. Not that it's not his fault, but you want all the resources out there to give everybody the best shot because it's best for your team.
So Bobby Petrino is the interim. Obviously, Bobby Petrino is the last coach to be really successful at Arkansas as a head coach. I do think it was strategic firing Sam Pittman when they did. There is some support for Bobby Petrino, but there's also a group that probably doesn't want him to be the head coach again. They could have saved $3 million on the buyout had they just let Arkansas lose to Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Auburn, which that probably was going to happen. That would have dropped Sam Pittman to below 500 since 2021, would have allowed them to pay $3 million less in buyout. I think they fired him when they did to give Bobby Petrino the toughest possible road to becoming the permanent head coach. Now, if he wins a bunch of games, like if he wins 4 or 5 games against what they have left, they should hire him. Like they should, because you got to be pretty good with this roster to do that. And he did just fire Travis Williams, the defensive coordinator. You know, the defensive staff was not doing great. So I don't know that it's going to be any better in this circumstance. But so they are at Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, at LSU, at Texas, Missouri. If he wins 4 games against that, by God, give him the job. Give him the job.
Yeah. You probably have a better sense of this than I do. Do you think the people who will be making that decision want him to succeed?
I'm guessing not, based on the timing of the Pittman firing.
Okay. Because if they would have done it later, then
the logical deduction from that.
Yeah. I just don't know if there's any romantic memory from before the motorcycle accident that trumps. Listen, if we've learned one thing about football,
there's nothing romantic about Bobby Petrino.
Yeah.
Full stop.
They were.
He wins sometimes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: when he won, that was probably really fun.
It was fun. It was fun.
There are other instances in the SEC where personal missteps were secondary to the notion that they could win.
Correct.
So I don't know. Like everybody's making a big deal. And
my issue with Petrino going forward is not what happened at the end of Arkansas. It's what happened at the end of Louisville would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah.
As soon as Lamar Jackson was gone, they just shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
They're still getting paid, but they just shut it down. So
yeah,
that's the bigger concern for me. I just don't want to be in that situation. If I am going to commit all these resources, I want a person who is 100% in, who's going to go, completely balls to the wall to get this done. So that brings me to the guy that we think might be the number one candidate, who's a son of Northwest Arkansas, played quarterback at Springdale High School, and that would be SMU head coach Rhett Lashlee, who was Gus Malzahn's lieutenant for years and years. Rhett's been awesome as a head coach in his first head coaching job. So he talked on the Pony Express, which is On3's SMU site, today about the rumors and innuendos about the Arkansas job, because obviously his name was going to come up the moment this job opened. So here's what Rhett said. We're present and we're happy here. We're fully committed to what we're building here. We've got great kids here. We've got a really good recruiting class that are freshmen right now. We've got a top 25 class committed in 2026 and a lot of great players in 2027. We're recruiting to come here to believe in the vision that we believe in. In life, this is, he continues, in life, you never say never. You don't know what the future holds, but our mind is here. Our heart's here. We're not worried about speculation outside of what we can control. We're just worried about trying to win some games in the ACC and continue building what we believe we can build here. You know what I didn't hear, Ari?
No.
Precisely. So it's going to be a thing. Like you're just going to have to deal with it. And it will be a lively debate about whether SMU, where they have more money than God, and you're in the ACC, which is a lot more winnable conference than the SEC, if you just stay there and go and continue to go to the playoff with fairly regular intervals, or do you take the challenge at Arkansas and try to be for Arkansas what Lane Kiffin has been for Ole Miss, or what Eli Drinkwitz has been for Missouri?
Would you rather have the shittiest room on a luxury cruise ship or the best room on a piece of shit sailboat?
So I just know from historical real estate buying in my family, cheapest house, nicest neighborhood always.
Interesting.
Because the value of that's only going to go up by being in the nice neighborhood. And the difference, the difference now, because I don't think that was sound thinking regarding head coaching jobs in the SEC 5 years ago, even.
No.
But in this era of college football, when Georgia and Alabama cannot build rosters that are that much better than yours, you got a shot if you do it right.
5 years ago, you weren't living in the worst neighborhood wasn't in danger of being bought out by the nice neighborhood and being turned into a parking lot.
So, exactly.
Like that I think is the other thing. So, that's the thing that is most interesting. And like, we're going to have this debate because SMU is a very attractive job in the moment. Like, if we knew that the ACC was going to be the ACC in 2040, I would probably not do that. We don't know that. And SMU has struggled for decades to try to get into the situation that they're in now. And ironically enough, and they paid handsomely to do it, I should say. Ironically enough, they might be in danger of being set back in 7 years if a Super League happens. So now listen, if you're Rhett Lashlee, 5 to 7 years down the line, it's not like Arkansas is the last time this is going to happen. If he continues to do what he's doing at SMU, he will be an attractive job or candidate for bigger jobs later on too. But given the fact that he's from there, if I were him, I would think long and hard about doing that. Even if things are going really well in Dallas right now.
So if you want to read that entire Rhett Lashlee story by Billy Embody, click the QR code on the screen right now. We're adding this.
Good job, River.
New feature, producer River tacked onto the show today. When we talk about a story from now on that's on 3 that you can read, there will be a QR code. You can just hit it on the screen with your phone, read the story while we talk about it. So we'll see what happens with this, but it is going to be fascinating to watch what Arkansas does. We're obviously waiting to see what happens with Florida. We're waiting to see what happens with Auburn. We're going to have more of these conversations here about what these jobs are and also what they aren't, because I do think we have to think about this differently now. One thing I think about all the time, Ari, is Modelo. Like, when Sam Pittman gets fired and I've got to do a video by the side of the road, I think, man, when I get to my destination here, I really need to crack open a Modelo, because nothing lets you relax and chill and makes you think, oh, I've made it, like a cold, crisp Modelo. And if you are listening to this, you're a college football fan, you're a full-time fan, you can stay game day ready all season with Modelo. Some things in life just made for each other: peanut butter and jelly, macaroni and cheese, Modelo, and college football. So no matter what's happening in your world, whether your team's number one, whether your coach is in the hot seat, you name it, grab yourself a nice cold Modelo, crack that thing, tip it back, and enjoy. It is the beer for full-time fans.
I love it.
You know who I'm a fan of, Ari? Memphis coach Ryan Silverfield. Because, we similar upbringings. He and I grew up about 2 hours apart, played high school football about the same time in the state of Florida. So know a lot of the same people, but it's been fascinating to watch his rise. You know, I love offensive line coaches who become head coaches and do great work. And he's done that. He was with Mike Norvell at Memphis. Mike Norvell leaves for Florida State. Ryan Silverfield gets the Memphis job. And right now, Silverfield, who's been winning consistently over the years at Memphis, has the Tigers in a great position, Ari. If they keep winning, if they can win the American, there's a really good chance they can wind in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think this is a really important season for him, not just personally, but, when it comes to like what Memphis can do and the opportunity that's ahead for them. But if he has any designs on any specific job openings that his name is being, tossed around with, good day to have him on the show, by the way.
That's right. But you can't worry about that if you're him, because this league will get you if you don't. They're playing Tulsa this week. Let's not forget that Tulsa went to Oklahoma State and won a few weeks ago. So this is one of those, you got to put the blinders on and just keep trying to win. So here is Ryan Silverfield, who's trying to win and also trying to get Ari to the Bass Pro Pyramid in Memphis. We are honored to be joined by Memphis coach Ryan Silverfield. The Tigers are 5-0, just beat Florida Atlantic in the American race, which is going to be a bloodbath this year. Coach, when you look around this league, How tough is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, from top to bottom, everybody's got talent. And I think that's day and age in the transfer portal. You're seeing a lot of guys are acquiring players of unique skill sets everywhere, offense, defense, and special teams. And then you keep looking, and everybody, for the most part, has a pretty darn good quarterback. And that's one of the things, the quarterback play in this conference continues to get better. And it's going to present some challenges as the season goes on.
What's it like coming to work every day when you're in this four-headed monster conference race with the playoff spot dangling off in the balance? Is it pressure? Is it excitement? Is it easier to get people to buy in? Just what's it like walking into your building?
Yeah, sure. First off, it's a great thing, right? Love being here. This is my 10th season. There's a lot of excitement surrounding this football program. I think over the last few years, we've been able to make some noise nationally. And so I think people are excited genuinely to walk in this office and compete every single day. The reality of it is we don't even talk about the playoffs. We don't even talk about the championship game. Yes, we do in the preseason. We know our only goal is to win the conference championship, and we'll see what happens with that. But ultimately, day in and day out, we just focus on being 1-0. And that's not coach speak. It's truly because there's so much going on. Every week's its own season. Every team we're going to play is going to present its issues. So, come in with the mindset, hey, how do we be the best version of ourselves every single day? How do we go out there and compete? And our players are bought into that. And that's what's been so great. They understand, hey, this is what it's like to be all in and compete every single day. Let's have great practices, great prep, and hopefully it leads to victories on Saturdays.
All right. So you mentioned great quarterback play, and you've had very good quarterback play from Brendan Lewis, but you're having an issue with him. He's not a big slider. And against FAU, you had a moment where, he got a little banged up. You had to put in your backup. And he said, he got asked about it after the game. He's like, not doing it, not sliding. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, look, Brendan Lewis is a tough sucker. Let's just call it what it is. He's very dynamic. Over the years, we've had some great quarterback play, right? From Seth Hennigan, who's now with the Jacksonville Jaguars, right, to Brady White, who's now in coaching, to Riley Ferguson prior to him, and I just missed the Paxton Lynch era. But you think about the quarterbacks that come through here, not a ton of them have been runners, and Brendan Lewis has the ability to run. Even if it's not a quarterback called run, he's going to take down, pull down the ball and run. He is a 225-pound quarterback with good speed and, great athleticism. But, yeah, we've been telling, hey, go and slide. Let's preserve those hits. Let's be smart about it. And he said, kind of gives you one of those, yeah, coach, I got you. And then next thing you know, he's lowering his shoulder. I said, man, we need you to play a lot of football this year, so let's be smart about it. But it is great to see a tough quarterback, right? That's hard-nosed, that loves a physicality aspect of the game.
Coach, you don't really see a lot of people in your profession at the same place for as long as you've been there. There are some long-tenured coaches, but what do you think it's been like to kind of go up the ranks at the same place and then also be there and take the head coaching job right at the apex of what has been a pretty staunch evolution in the sport? Like, do you think that your past there and living through it at the same place has helped you navigate how to do things better in this NIL transfer portal era, playoff expansion type scenario?
Yeah, absolutely, Ari. That's a great question. I think part of it was, coaching the NFL for 7 years, left to come here and kind of said, hey, I'm going to be loyal. My predecessor, Mike Norvell, and I are close friends. I was going to be loyal to him, even though opportunities came to be coordinator, to go coach in the SEC, to do those things back in the NFL. And ultimately I said, you know what, let's be loyal to Memphis. And it paid off. Obviously now my 6 years as the head coach, but yeah, it's amazing. Like right when I got this head job, all the changes in college football started occurring, right? Yeah. Let's start with COVID. Oh, and then by the way, now there's this thing called the transfer portal, now this NIL, now rev share. And I think those challenges that have come year in and year out, we've actually looked at as opportunities, and how can we embrace those? I think the NFL background, the pro mindset has actually helped us here as a university and as a football program fully embrace it. In fact, I don't look at them as issues or problems. These are great opportunities that we're going to seize and take advantage of. And credit to the administration, credit to those people around us, because every single week we're finding ways to stay ahead of the curve. and being here has certainly helped us. We're going to continue to take advantage of whatever the NCAA or college football throws at us, because we know the rules aren't done yet. And there's going to be ever-changing things in this sport. But we look at it, we put a smile on our face and say, hey, these are great things. How do we take advantage of it? And I think the background and then also being at the same school for so long has certainly helped us.
So you're only 45, but you've been coaching for a long, long time. For those who don't know, Ryan played at the Bowles School in Florida. Most famous alum, probably Chipper Jones, but they were amazing at football back in the 90s under Corky Rogers, and couple state titles while you were there. Played with badasses like Travis Carroll and Tommy Hillary. But you went right into coaching after that. And actually, instead of playing in college in Hampton City, you coached there. So how did that come about? And what did you learn as a coach who was the same age as the players?
Yeah, and that's a great question. First off, I'm glad I didn't have to play against you in high school because you would whip my butt. But I probably would have maybe tried to go at your kneecaps or something.
No. You see, Bowles would have beaten our team 55-7. That's the problem. Your teammates. You're being modest, but I know how good your teammates were too.
Yeah, that's good. Let's give them the credit. Certainly no one was worried about me on the other side. I promise you that. But no, I think part of it's unique, right? Yeah, I did start coaching at the age of 18. The opportunity arose where I could start at a young age, spring of my senior of high school. And then I went to a small college in Virginia, and they afforded me the opportunity to coach very early in my career. So at the age of 20, I was actually the defensive line coach at a Division III school and in the state of Virginia. And I thought it was great, but what happened, I had to grow up really, really quickly. I couldn't be going to fraternity parties. I couldn't be hanging out. My college life was quite different from the rest of those around me. And so, yeah, you're coaching guys at one point, they're older than you, and you had to be an understanding. You had to learn the game and be able to provide them with information that was going to make them a better football player. Because ultimately they're going to sit there and say, well, what the hell do you know? You're young, you're new to this thing. And then every year, right, and coaching multiple positions, I've grown in this thing, right? I've been a quarterback coach. I've coached offensive line. I've coached pretty much every position but kickers on the football field. And I'm trying to learn that now just so I can check all the boxes. But when it's all said and done, it's been great. But I think that's allowed me, having started coaching at such a young age and seeing it from so many different aspects, right? Whether it's coaching high school football, coaching Division III, coaching FCS, coaching in the NFL, chipped away at this thing the right way. And ultimately, I think it pays dividends day in, day out here.
I reacted the way I did because we had Eli Drinkwitz on last week, and Ari asked 7 questions about why there are no coaches who coach kicking specifically, other than the 3 guys in recruiting who do it.
I waterboarded him for 7 minutes about it. I'm like, you could win or lose a game or a championship.
I don't have a good answer for you on that one.
Why don't you have somebody helping them kick in practice? He goes, guys, they keep making it. It's fine. I was like, all right, sorry. Coach, this is a podcast. We're all having fun here. You mentioned loyalty in your last question. And I think that's an important quality. How do you handle your name popping up on hot boards? Because that's what happens when you're successful, and Memphis has been successful. And how do you specifically handle that when your team is very good and competing to win a conference championship right now against some very good teams?
Sure. Look, I appreciate those things. I appreciate the headlines, and I understand people have a job to do. So I'm grateful for that. I think it speaks highly of our program that my name is being mentioned. But look, I don't have time to read the headlines. I don't have time to read all that stuff. And if any of that stuff, it's a credit to our great fan base. It's a credit to the administration. It's a credit to the great players and the work and the assistant coaches that they've been putting in and they've put in. And so it's a credit to so many other people. But the reality of it is it's a true focus. We talk about putting the blinders on and attacking each and every day and being great where we're at. I've asked my guys to focus on the task at hand. Let's not look in the past, right? Let's not look too far ahead. Let's just focus on this week. And if I'm going to ask them to do it, I've certainly got to do the same. And so every single day, right, the challenge is itself, right? The biggest thing, can we put together a great game plan this week versus Tulsa? Can we have great practices? And really, that's all I can focus on. And I ask that our group does the exact same.
Does the improvement in the quality of the league help with that? I mean, it doesn't seem like you can take a week off. Tulsa, they lost to Tulane last week, but they went and beat Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Absolutely. Every week's going to present different challenges, right? Like you said earlier, we truly believe, right? Obviously, this is the top group of 5 conference in all of college football. We know at the end of this thing, the winner of the conference will most likely be playing in the playoffs. Even though we don't talk about that, we understand, right? Like Tulsa, obviously, went on the road and beat a Big 12 team. And so they're capable. And every week, right, with the transfer portal, they're going to have talent. And you put on the film, you say, holy cow. And then, as the season goes on, right, a lot of these teams, as we talked about earlier, I mean, there's so many undefeated teams or teams that have one loss, but that loss may be to a top 15 team in the country. So, look, we're going to have to be on it. And our guys have done a phenomenal job of being focused at the task at hand and understand that, look, every week, doesn't matter who we're playing, home or away, this conference, from top to bottom is very, very good. And we got to bring our A game.
When you beat a team from the SEC, does it feel different for your players than it does when you win another big game? I mean, you're going to be playing some really good teams this year in your conference, but is there an extra pep in the step of the players when it's like, hey, we knocked off a team in the SEC?
I try to tell them that, look, every game is the exact same, right? No game is any different, but we've been fortunate here. Obviously, you just look back at our recent history of the Power 4 teams we beat, right? We beat Iowa State in the bowl game. And then last season, right, went and beat at Florida State, beat West Virginia, and then beat Arkansas. So that's 4 straight Power 4 wins, which speaks volumes about the young men we have in our locker room and the way they're willing to go take on those type of opponents. But ultimately, the most important game is the next one. And again, going back to that, it's not coach speak because our goal is to win the conference championship. And so it's truly a one game at a time mentality. We know how tough this conference is. And so I hope there's just as much excitement when we won at FAU as there was when we beat Arkansas. Obviously, we understand the national spotlight that winning an SEC game means to this program, to our university, and to our wonderful city. But in our locker room, it shouldn't be any different, right? It's all about the next one and going and attacking this thing. And I think our guys have bought into that.
Hey, speaking of the wonderful city, I'm sure you have, but have you been in that big triangle Bass Pro Shop?
Multiple times.
I've never been there before. What's the deal with that place? Is it just a regular store?
It was their basketball arena. This is where Penny Hardaway played back in the day.
But is that
Penny Hardaway, Mike Tyson fought there?
Oh, yeah. Do you think the next time I drive through Memphis, I should make a point to stop into that store?
Well, next time you stop in Memphis, you're going to give me a call. We're going to get some good barbecue, okay? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to go to Bass Pro. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the elevator. It's the largest freestanding elevator, Ari, in the United States, okay? The second largest one in the entire world. First one's in Dubai, all right? We're going to take that large freestanding elevator to the top, all right? We're going to go look out on the Lookout Pyramid, all right? We're going to see the beautiful Mississippi River. All right, we're going to go back down. You can see the hotels that surround inside that overlook the interior of the Bass Pro. There's an alligator tank. There's a bar at the top. There's a bowling alley. They got all sorts of things. And so it's certainly a great deal. We'll walk all around. We can spend hours in there.
That sounds like a wonderful day together.
They never bring the Peabody ducks around the alligator tank, do they? Is that be too much Memphis at once?
Yeah, well, that's maybe what we should do, right? Have a barbecue festival inside the pyramid with the Peabody ducks walking around that elevator, have the duck master take them to the top, and have Elvis singing at the end of this thing. I mean,
wow.
Holy cow.
Oh,
Memphis
what a day.
Overload. Be sweet.
Do you have to be political about the barbecue in Memphis because it is so – do you have to be careful what you say?
Yeah, well, whoever's paying the bills, right? I got to figure out from our people, right? Our admin, hey, who's our sponsor? Because –
this is why I didn't ask.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I can eat barbecue with the best of them. That's for sure. Right. And so Andy, like you, a food connoisseur, I've tried every barbecue place in Memphis and love them all. There's so many good ones, too many, but yeah, I can't sit there and say, hey, you got to go to this place because I'm sure someone will say, hey, they don't sponsor you. This is the group that does.
But one that won't get you in trouble in your hometown of Jacksonville, the Bearded Pig. So we'll shout them out.
Great spot. Been there, know the owners. That Beard Pig's a great spot when you're down Jacksonville for sure.
I have to know, is Memphis have a special barbecue technique, Andy, that is different from others, or is it just
the dry rub ribs, which is I think is actually the best way to do ribs. Where instead of saucing the ribs, you actually put an extra coating of seasoning on them at the very end.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's, people talk about Kansas City barbecue, Carolina barbecue, and while those are all great, Memphis has its own unique smoke and flavor. And you go to some of these places and some of these hole in the wall places where the barbecue, man, they've been cooking it for days. They've been smoking it. But the dry rub ribs are certainly, a Memphis special, but you can't go wrong at all the spots. You got to try it all.
Yeah, and you got to hit him now with the rule for life. But I think one good rule for life from Ryan here is don't ever promote someone who doesn't sponsor you. Like that's a pretty good.
All right, I think we've learned that over the last year or so.
Yeah.
So we're getting good at that. That was brought to you by Modelo, by the way. No,
do they want to sponsor me?
They actually are looking at different colleges. So they've already got a bunch of schools. I do think you should get the Memphis folks on the horn with them because I think they'd be.
We'll get our people
with
your people. We'll get our people with your people.
Sounds
right.
Perfect. I'm all
So
for it.
other than that, what is your rule for life?
Yeah, I think, we kind of hit on this earlier. I've been doing this thing for a long time. And I think whether you're coaching Division III, you're coaching the NFL, it's treat people the right way. And I tell all of our guys, right? Post in our rooms, every single one of our guys knows the custodians. They know all the equipment managers by name. Their pictures are posted. We go through it during training camp. It's actually in our coaches and players manual, all the people within our program, because they all make this thing go. We have 200 people in this place, and each one's just as important. And so treat everybody with great respect and dignity. Great things will come, and we're ultimately all working to the same goal. And I think that's a great rule for life.
I love it. That is the perfect rule. I love the old, when people would go on job interviews and they take them out to lunch, and if you treated the server badly, you didn't get the job. If you knew how to treat people, that mattered.
No question. That and find good barbecue at any spot you got. I think those are two quality rules for life, and you can't go wrong.
That's right. Treat the pitmaster with the utmost respect. Ryan, thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Andy Ari, thank you guys so much. Go Tigers.
That is Memphis coach Ryan Silverfield. And, maybe we get him a Panini sponsorship. Ari, I think he'd probably like that too. So we love Panini. Visit PaniniAmerica.net to start your collection. I have a pack of Luminance. You ready to rip this thing right now, Ari?
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you got. I'm super excited to see if you can pick another 101 out of one of these things.
I know. I'm living off that 101 Patrick Mahomes. I want to.
You got hot hands.
I want to top that one. I want to top it. All right. We got a little Troy Franklin action. Roquan Smith. Jordan Addison. He's back this week, right? So there you go.
He played last week. He had 150 yards. Yeah.
Yep. Jalen Lane. Oh, we got a numbered to 150 Quinn Ewers Do You Miss Me card. We'll see. We'll see how much we miss Quinn Ewers, because I think Arch Manning may be coming around. I had another person from Texas say yesterday that they think Arch Manning's coming around. So Ty Felton autograph, David Montgomery fusion, Luke Lachey from the great line of Iowa tight ends, Alec Omenor, and Bo Collins. So still nothing that quite matches the old Patrick Mahomes 1-of-1.
Can I have that?
But no, you can't have that.
Do I have to ask every time you have an ad? Because that's what I'm.
You can ask every time, and I'm going to say no every time.
What do we think of Bryce Young? This is a 2023 select tricolor prism to 149, graded PSA 10.
We would like Bryce Young to put two good games together in a row.
Yeah.
I don't like the beat the Falcons 30-0 and then get blown out in your next game. That doesn't do it, man.
And what do we think of Maserati Marvin Harrison, 2024 Obsidian stained glass case hit PSA 10 rookie card? That's another.
We're feeling slightly better about him, but I think I'm going to need to see more.
Yeah.
Slightly better.
Just going through some cards on here on the desk, like always, and, have some speculative assets here that we're hoping will pay off, but we'll see. Marvin Harrison had the dropsies and then scored a touchdown later and kind of made it up for it a little bit. We'll see. I still think he's going to be very good, but who knows in that crazy league. But what I do know is that you can be a part of it with Panini.
That's right. PaniniAmerica.net to start your collection. Here's this Bo Collins. Bo Collins played at Notre Dame last year, Clemson before that. We are going to talk about the Fighting Irish right now. And they are playing Boise State. And this was one of those games that we looked at in the preseason, and we assumed Boise State will be in its usual position of fighting for that group of 5 spot in the playoff. And I realized that only happened last year because it was the first year. But Boise State, obviously, the most consistent winner in the group of 5 conferences. They opened the season with a loss at USF. They've since won 3 in a row: Eastern Washington, Air Force, and Appalachian State. But are they good enough? Will this be a good enough win that if Notre Dame wins this, it will help Notre Dame? Because that's going to be our question pretty much every week with Notre Dame is, do they need style points? How do they stay in the playoff hunt after dropping the first 2?
So we did allude to this a little bit over the weekend, but I think it's a good 5-minute conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There are a large faction of Notre Dame fans who are adamantly convinced at the moment that they control their own destiny to the playoff. And I hear things like, if you win 10 in a row, you come in hot. If the teams you lost to are very good, they'll forgive you for those. All those things. I think Notre Dame, if they finish 10-2, and if you look at their schedule and how good they are, I have a hard time seeing them losing again. Now, NIU could pop up or Marshall could pop up. It's college football. You never know. But as I'm looking at the schedule right now, I firmly believe that, Notre Dame is a top 10 team in America. People will roll their eyes at that. But what I saw against Arkansas and Purdue, a lot of teams are going to struggle to beat that team. If they get there, it will be impressive, but it's not a stone cold lock. Their resume will look similar in the aggregate to Miami's last year. Miami didn't get in. Now it'll be different because Miami lost late, and Notre Dame will
and the Georgia Tech and Syracuse losses were not considered as
understandable.
Right. So and the thing is, Miami this year might be the best team in the country. Texas A&M might be the best team in the country. Miami, I feel fairly confident, will be either in the playoff or very much in the playoff mix. We think Texas A&M will, but their schedule the rest of the way is pretty tough, so we don't know that for sure. I think that matters too.
I take great exception to the notion that it is a stone cold, no doubt about it lock. I think they would get in. If I had to pick yes or no at the moment, that Notre Dame, I think that it would play out that way. But I do think that Notre Dame fans, as disgusting as it is, should have been rooting for USC last week.
Yeah,
because
NC State lost to Virginia Tech.
Right. So I think you can just basically say right now that Notre Dame is not going to have any sexy quality wins at the end of the year. So you have to hope that there's
you're just giving up on USC like that?
I am, yeah. Sure, certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, all right, so you're giving up on USC. Like, USC still has to play Michigan before they play Notre Dame. Obviously, they play Oregon at the end of the season. Like, if they get it turned around, it'd be fine. But also, if they're capable of beating Oregon, they're capable of beating Notre Dame, which is another problem in general.
Yeah. Here's the thing. They're absolutely a 2-loss team if they're going to serve the purpose that Notre Dame needs them to serve. Like, they've already got their second loss.
That's the best you can hope for if you're Notre Dame.
That means that they can't lose any other one. And based on what I saw on Saturday, the proposition of that, especially like even if you take Oregon out, like the proposition of them not being a 4-loss team at the end of the year seems dire at the moment. So at the very least, they're not going to be having any wins over playoff teams, which is what a quality win now is.
Right.
So they might have 2 losses against playoff teams, but and I do think that the committee does take into account like winning streaks and like given the way I think the
committee also takes into account what does it look like when you're in the game against a playoff team, because
they do.
That's who you're going to play in the playoffs is fellow playoff teams.
When you zoom out at the end of November and in December, those are secondary criteria.
Right.
The primary criteria is win and loss.
What are your best wins?
And what are your best wins? So, but my question to you, because I went on a Notre Dame show over the weekend talking about this. I wrote a column about it on Saturday. because of where their losses occur, is there still some of that old time BCS lose early, win 10 games in a row, and just based on where you'll be like ranked every week because you'll just steadily move up as everybody loses around you? Do you think that plays a factor? Like, is it possible that Notre Dame could play its way into like number 5 by November without beating anybody good because everyone's losing? Or do you think the committee will be seasoned enough, which I do, to not move them very much week to week because their resume is not improving?
One, I think the committee will be seasoned enough. And two, I don't think, like, even in the BCS era, it didn't actually work that way. Like, remember when Oklahoma lost to K-State in the Big 12 championship game and still made the BCS championship?
Yeah.
Like, that happened. And so my freshman year at Florida, this was pre-BCS, but it was the Alliance. Well, the loss came in the last regular season game against Florida State. Still wound up in the championship game in the Sugar Bowl. Because some things happened. But
if you use the BCS for 12 teams, then it would have worked because the BCS would have allowed you to move up over the time, and then you might end up finish number 5 instead of
I think the committee will be much more critical of what do your wins look like and what do your losses look like. Who did you win against? Who did you lose to? I do think they're much more critical of that, and probably starting later in the season allows you to do that because you at that point have a pretty good idea of where everybody is.
You agree with me that it's not a stone cold lock that 10-2 is in?
Oh, I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it depends on everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think let's try to put a percentage on it right now. I would say if
80.
Notre Dame goes 10-2, 80% is a very fair assessment. 80% chance they get in, 20% chance they don't. So 4-5 they get in, 1-5 they don't.
Especially if the season continues to go the way it's going. Everybody is losing. So, I think what Notre Dame's worst nightmare, this is nightmare fuel. And I don't know how it would have to play out in the next month and a half before you realize it. But if Notre Dame is being directly compared to a team at the end of the year, like last year's Alabama, last year's Ole Miss, or last year's South Carolina, where those teams are 9-3,
and they have a lot better wins,
14 and 15, and they're at number 11. And like Alabama, for instance, has a win over Georgia on their resume, and they're 9-3. They will pick the team from the SEC. And I hear a lot of, brands and money and all that stuff that does not take into account. That's not how it works. It's not going to work that way.
Also, Alabama is just as big of a brand as Notre Dame.
Yeah,
so
and Alabama
doesn't
was
matter.
left out last year while Indiana and SMU went in. So if your idea of like brand awareness and television eyeballs is like rigging the system, like I think you need to like grow up because that's not.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think what you suggested is exactly right because a 3-loss SEC team is going to have better wins than 10-2 Notre Dame.
Like
just by default.
Like, I'm trying to think, like 9-3 Oklahoma, 9-3 Alabama, 9-3.
Oh, so Producer River, put up Alabama's schedule, please. We already know one of their losses is to Florida State, so we can more easily figure out who they beat to get there. But I'm just going through their schedule now. So to finish 9-3, which means they could lose 2 more games along the way. So let's say they lost to Oklahoma
and
Auburn. That means they've beaten LSU, South Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, and Vanderbilt, which among those teams, somebody's going to win 9. There may be somebody who wins 10 among those teams.
And I think you could also make the case that 4 or 5 of those wins are better than Notre Dame's best win.
Yes.
Now, I don't know, like if USC, what they'll be. If you have confidence that they'll be 9-3, then maybe you could make that.
I don't have any confidence. Navy is going to be considered a pretty good win, I think, by the end.
But when they beat Navy 63-10, it won't.
But that's you can't punish them for beating the hell out of a good team.
I know, but it happened last year. We saw it happen last year. Like
I know it happened last year.
About like Navy and Army last year, and then they played both of them and killed them, and it was like, oh, that was fun while it lasted. Like it goes away.
Yeah,
the committee people are human. Like they know. Like it's not like I don't know. They'll probably get in, but the only people who think it's a stone cold lock are the people who are wishing that it was.
It's interesting. Because I think you're talking about a subset of Notre Dame fans. I actually find Notre Dame fans to be the most logical and reasonable of old line, big time college football fan bases. Like they usually take a pretty critical eye. So I don't think what you're talking about is most of the fan base. I think a lot of the fan base is sweating this out. So I don't know if we're helping them or hurting them talking about this, because I do think we keep bringing up the 20% chance they don't get in at 10-2.
But I think it's like a 95% chance they are 10-2. Like that's the thing.
That was where I was going with that. Because I was about to ask you, who do you think can beat them on the rest of their schedule? I guess USC maybe, but the way Notre Dame plays, we just saw USC lose to Illinois. Like Notre Dame plays in a way that is antithetical to how USC succeeds. Like
Notre Dame
they don't succeed against teams that play like Notre Dame.
If Notre Dame loses, it will be another upset loss that felt like NIU. It might not be as embarrassing, but like that's not going to be a game that we're going to be able to see right now.
Utterly disrespectful to USC. Ari, utterly disrespectful.
No, they are not.
I'll do understand what you're saying.
Miles, and you can film me if they lose to USC. It ain't gonna happen. All right,
we got a bet.
Like, and you're in this bet. You don't have to put anything up.
that is how confident you are. I get you. I get you. Notre Dame style, USC style, bad matchup for USC. Yeah. But now, one more question before we let everybody go. Does Notre Dame need style points?
I think it always helps. I think perception, like again, the people in the committee room are people, and beating the crap out of like it kind of works like two ways though, because it's like if you beat the crap out of everybody, then like it makes your case for having a challenging schedule go away, because it's like, well, you didn't even have to break a sweat against these losers.
Yeah, beat the crap out of everybody. Root hard for Texas A&M and Miami. That's probably the best advice. Like. What you want, ideally, is if you're Notre Dame, is ACC champion Miami sitting there with a bye into the playoff, SEC champion Texas A&M sitting there with a bye into the playoff, and you go, look, we were in one possession games with those teams, beat the hell out of everybody else,
and you don't even have
we should get another crack at them.
The Boise poker chip, which would have been like if Boise was the undefeated Group of 5 champ. It's still possible Boise State loses this game, goes 10-2, and wins the Mountain West. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility. Yeah, and maybe it will, and maybe that will be perceived as a quality win, because the quality wins. It's not just which playoff teams you beat; it's which teams are in the final rankings. That's how the metric is used.
And there's a good chance Navy's in there, so there is a little bit of a chance here. But I worry because like you said, USC losing to Illinois hurts. NC State losing to Virginia Tech hurts bad. Like you needed NC State to be the surprise team in the ACC, not the team that lost to Virginia Tech.
Because there's a lot of people who try to draw back like reference to last year, Andy. They're like, well, Indiana didn't beat anybody last year and they got in. Indiana was already one fewer losses than you have through 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were being compared to 9-3 teams, and the 9-3 teams did not get in over them because they had 2 fewer losses. If Notre Dame has a similar resume to Indiana at the end of the year, that means that they have no quality wins and 2 losses, and then that's when the door opens for Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. If Indiana was a 2-loss team, I guarantee it. I won't be able to prove it.
Wouldn't have gotten in. They would not have gotten in. Yeah.
So, keep drawing comparisons to last year's Indiana and last year's Ohio State, which beat 2 playoff teams in the regular season. Those 2 situations do not apply to your team this year as bad as you want it to. So, again, still feel good. I think that they're really good, and I think they're going to be 10-2, and I think they've got an 80% chance, if not a little bit higher, of getting in at 10-2. It's just the only thing I'm trying to stress is that it's not guaranteed.
3:30 Eastern, Notre Dame Stadium, Boise State at Notre Dame. This is going to be a story we follow all season because it's not going to stop being interesting.
Every week. Did you see the headline?
Notre Dame Tuesday. We want to have Notre Dame Tuesday. Is that what we're going to call it from now
on? Did you see the name of the headline of my column that I wrote after the game on Monday or on Saturday?
I don't think I saw that.
Okay, let me read it to you. Hold on. Okay, ready? It says, "Ready for the season-long debate about Notre Dame and the college football playoff?" ?
Ari just pressing the button.
It's true though. Like, we will be talking about this every single week, and nothing's going to change because we won't know the answer until we see how the rest of the sport shakes out.
Well, Unless Notre Dame loses, then we just won't talk about it anymore.
And actually, one last thing, Andy.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Maybe, I think there's a high likelihood in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw this, but Ralph Russo tweeted it, and it was the percentages of likelihood that teams in the SEC will win their conference. And he mentioned me in this. I got to find it. But basically, there's 7 teams that what we've been talking about with the SEC for the past few weeks now.
Can I guess the 7 teams?
I'm trying to find the graphic. Hold on.
While you try to find it, can I start guessing teams?
Yeah, just for the sake of the podcast.
Okay, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. Is that the 7?
That's the 7.
No Missouri. Shocking.
It's actually 10 teams.
Okay, so Missouri, LSU.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt?
Yep. Here are the
yet.
SEC title odds per ESPN's S&P Plus. And this takes into account remaining schedule and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss is the current favorite, 16.3% likelihood.
Right. Ole Miss is 3-0 in the SEC.
Yep.
5-0 overall. They play Washington State next. Ole Miss has to go 3-2 the rest of the way to make the play. 3-2 in the SEC the rest of the way to make the playoff.
Missouri, second, 12.9 because they've got a manageable.
They have an easier draw.
And they're undefeated still. Oklahoma is third, 11.1%.
That's interesting. Now, I don't know. Does that take the John Mateer injury into account? Because I think we'll learn a lot more in Dallas how good Oklahoma is independent of John Mateer.
Tied for third is Alabama at 11.1%.
Okay.
Fourth, Vanderbilt, 9.7%.
Mm-hmm.
Fifth, Texas, 8.5%. Sixth, Tennessee, 7.2%. Seventh, Texas A&M, 6.2%.
Probably the hardest schedule the rest of the way other than Oklahoma.
Yep. Eighth, Georgia, 5.2%.
Mm-hmm.
And tied for eighth, LSU, 5.2%. So I'm bringing this up in the Notre Dame discussion of there's a lot of 9-3 right there. So buckle up, dude. There's a lot of 9-3 right there. So buckle up because it actually makes me want to drop their percentage down to 70%. Because the SEC is going to
friends
be
all over the place
at the end of the year, and those teams are going to have quality wins, and they're going to be 9-3, and Notre Dame won't. Now, if
it's not even about the SEC being loud or the apparatus itself. It's just going to be. It's just here are the wins.
Yeah, here are the wins. So, and that doesn't take into account any surprises that pop out of the Big Ten and the ACC. That's just the SEC alone.
None of them are counting Arkansas as any of those wins, by the way.
If Indiana goes 11-1 again this year, there's a spot that's gone. If somebody from the ACC, if Florida State beats Miami and they both finish 11-1 and one win or whatever, or they both finish with 2 losses, and then there's a third team in the ACC that's 10-2 and doesn't get into the whatever. I'm just saying it's there. It's all right there.
No, it's going to be there are going to be roadblocks. So Notre Dame is not in control. All they can control is whether they keep winning. But even that doesn't necessarily put them in full control. And I think that's the general point of what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's difficult because I actually believe to the core of my being, deep down into my loins and plums, that Notre Dame is one of the 10 best teams in college football right now.
Right.
Now, people
I want to see this Notre Dame team in the playoff.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I think that they could make a run.
But them going 10-2 isn't necessarily automatically putting them in.
And the thing that sucks about having a really young quarterback who's never started in the first 2 games is that I assume or presume that CJ Carr is going to be very good at the end of the year.
It's pretty damn good now.
He's pretty good now. Imagine how he's going to be playing in November and December like that. So, there's a lot to like about this team. It's just unfortunate that they don't have an opportunity because they lost to 2 really good teams by 4 total points too. They don't have the opportunity to prove it to the world that they're good because they don't play anybody good. So,
oh boy, you know what I'm hearing? You know what I'm hearing in this ear? It's all the people going, join a conference. They're in the chat right now.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. But no, it's true. And you know what? If they don't make it because they're not in a conference, then they don't make it because they're not in a conference.
Yeah,
so, that's part
Notre
of Notre
Dame has been willing to make that trade before. I think they're still willing to make that trade. I understand why. We don't have to go into the lecture, but this is going to be something we have to follow the rest of the season. So we'll talk to you again about it next week on Notre Dame Tuesday. Meanwhile, tomorrow, Mega Board Wednesday. The message boards will be our guide. God only knows what people are going to post between now and then. We'll talk to you tomorrow.